Just a quick note before we get started to let you know I'm in the process of moving house, and so the sound quality might be a little bit less than we're used to because I don't have my studio set up again just yet. Hopefully soon. This is the World Organic News for the week ending 9th of October 2017. Jon Moore reporting. This week we begin with a post from Petit Paradis, The New Earth. This post commenced with a quote from David Holmgren's book, Permaculture, Principles and Pathways Beyond Sustainability. Quote, "The image of clean green technology where we do not need to mess with nature or kill anything to provide for our needs is, in the final analysis, an illusion. That illusion appears to have substance only because generations of the world's most affluent urbanites have been disconnected from nature." End quote. This quote is a call to reality. The post goes on to articulate the ways the poster's neighbours are all doing a little bit to reduce their footprint on the planet, from growing veggies amongst the roses to a few abundant fruit trees in each backyard. This is a great way to build a community. Podcast footnote: building a community is a shorthand way of saying getting to know other people, finding out what we have in common with them and building upon those shared thoughts and activities. It means allowing the things we disagree with, politics, religion, sporting teams, to not interfere with that which unites us. Seeing others as our friends, not competition, fellow citizens rather than competing consumers. End podcast footnote. The poster has even bigger dreams. Quote, "We are taking green waste from other gardens, newspapers from other sources, cardboard boxes from multiple places. It is very reminiscent of when we first started to create soil at Petit Paradis. My mind drifts along such thoughts as, what if every fourth house in the street did this sort of thing with their garden? There just wouldn't be a fraction of the waste going to landfill, and the produce grown could go to the houses that supplied the materials." End quote. Imagine such a world where 25% of households were producing food from the collected unwanted organic matter from the other 75, and feeding them with the surplus. Bill Mollison, the other half of Mollison and Holmgren quoted at the start of the episode, suggested that 10% of households moving from consumption to production would be sufficient to turn the world around. So the suggestion of 1 in 4 would have huge beneficial effects. But for this to happen, the 4 households would have to be talking to each other above and beyond a nodded head when passing in the street. Mollison also, as I have quoted before, had a definition for waste that I try to keep in mind, especially when the topic comes up in conversation. Waste is simply a resource in the wrong place. This leads nicely to our next post, Why Zero Waste Matters, from the blog Regenerating Our World. This post starts with the most basic of questions. Quote, "When you think of throwing something away, where is away? Does it truly vanish once it is discarded in the rubbish bin? No. The only place it vanishes from is your eyesight. It actually goes directly to landfill." End quote. And landfills are a disaster. The embedded energy in each item placed therein is lost. The embedded energy refers to the amount of energy used to create the product which is being buried. Take the case of glass panes as an example. Huge amounts of heat energy are used to turn sand into glass, and then to shape the molten glass into window panes. Such items can be reused as windows again or framed up to create season extending coal frames in the garden and so on. Even broken glass can be recycled through the glass factories where less energy is required to reshape the many pieces than would be required to start with sand. Now, not everything can be recycled, I hear some people say. True enough. The microbeads of plastic, which are essential apparently to the beauty industry to place layers of makeup and sunscreen on skin, are essentially on a one-way trip from factory to environment, increasingly the oceans and the species that live therein. I could go on, but the point is, I think, made. We need to go cold turkey off oil-based plastics. There are alternatives. Hemp springs to mind, and other cellulose-based products that can be made from the current, in inverted commas, waste products. Remember Bill Mollison when you hear that word. The aim should be to achieve zero waste. In that case, all resources would be in their proper place, and we would have no need for landfills. To quote from the post, their quote from the Zero Waste International Alliance, zero waste is defined as such, quote, Zero waste is a goal that is ethical, economical, efficient and visionary, to guide people into changing their lifestyles and practices to emulate sustainable natural cycles, where all discarded materials are designed to become resources for others to use." End quote. Even when this goal is achieved, we'll still need some form of energy to keep the world moving, to reconfigure the broken glass and etc. One of the stumbling blocks / opportunities in the renewable sector is storage. Elon Musk is making a fortune with chemical storage, more commonly known as batteries. But there are other forms, and our last post for this week tackles one of them. From the blog Random Thoughts comes the post entitled, "Want Energy Storage? Here are 22,000 sites for pumped hydro across Australia." I'll start with a quote from the authors of the post. Quote, "With the support of the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, we have identified 22,000 potential pumped hydro energy storage sites across all states and territories of Australia. Pumped hydro energy storage can readily be developed to balance the grid with any amount of solar and wind power, all the way up to 100% as aging coal-fired power stations close." End quote. The idea behind pumped hydro storage is pretty straightforward. In the same way excess energy produced by, say, rooftop solar panels could be stored in a battery, the excess energy generated by a solar farm could be used to pump water from a lower level to a higher one. Then, when the sun goes down and the TVs come on and the water flows from the upper level to the lower, generating hydroelectricity as it does so. The thing is, the pumps and the hydro generators are the same piece of kit. This is a mature technology. It has been used for decades on the Snowy Hydro scheme, where snow melt is pumped about between storages and then flows downhill to produce electricity and send irrigation water west to the inland parts. We have this technology with all the kinks worked out. Solar PV and wind are now cheaper than per kilowatt hour of output than building coal or even gas-fired power stations. What we don't have is the political vision, the drive or the will to move to this form of energy stabilisation. Too many parliaments seem to be, if not in the pocket of international fossil fuel producers, at least at their beck and call. Again, and I'm somewhat tired of having to say, we need to raise hell. We need to maintain the rage. Another summer of heatwave records here in Australia, and I fear bushfires, may be the push necessary to get things moving, but only if individuals and groups make it clear to our elected representatives we will stand with them if they stand up to entrenched interests. We built the Snowy scheme, we can build, if not 22,000 pumped hydro sites, at least 1,000 to prove the concept on the ground, and then ramp up. I would also like to mention that I still have the 1 square metre garden handout available. Email me at square@worldorganicnews.com and it'll be in your inbox pronto. And on that note, I'll call Stump for this week's episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back in a week.